I don't know how you call three of us three leaders. I've grown up knowing about Mr. Gopalakrishnan, Mr. Gurcharan Das. They're legends, and I'm still a learner from their wisdom and experience. This session is going to be exactly in the line of what Mr. Myra said, that it is going to be a session of learning. I also believe that we live as long as we learn and we evolve. I try and learn every moment, not only from legends, I also try and learn from anybody who come across and meet up with me. So we would talk about leadership. I believe, this is my own personal feeling, sir, that I think life and business, those of us who manage people, life and business, there's a blurring line. We carry the same personality in both places. At times we confuse. So leadership, according to me, is an attitude. It doesn't restrict us in our conduct only in the corporate world, in our life at every step of the way. I had come across many questions about leadership where I was confused. I didn't have answers. So tonight, I'm going to take the opportunity to bounce off those questions and the gray areas about leadership that I have in my mind from both of you gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Right, the first question is quite an obvious one. I think each one of us would have guessed it here. Are leaders born or built or self-made? Mr. Das.
Ultimately, the role of the leader is to create trust in the organization. And trust is based on people feeling in the organization that they are being treated fairly. Fairness.
Fairness, trust,
and
yes.
So, what do I mean by attitude and how does that inculcate it? That was your question. Is it innate? Is it conditioning? And so the attitudes such as determination, integrity, these are attitudes. And in my case, I learned this at the age of 4 without realizing it. My name used to be Ashok Kumar. But my grandmother suspected that my mother had given me that name because she thought my mother was secretly in love with a Bollywood actor named Ashok Kumar. And some of you people in this audience might know that Ashok Kumar in the 1940s was a combination of Amitabh Bachchan and Shah Rukh Khan.
Sir, I must compliment you. You look no less handsome than Ashok Kumar at this age also. You aged gracefully.
So, my grandmother suspected this, and so this was not right. My name, so she took me to her guru. She placed me at his feet, and she said to the guru, "Guruji enu na dyoji." And the guru, seeing me at his feet, came up with a good answer. He said, "Why don't we call him Gurcharan Das?" So, at the age of 3.5, I'm instantly transformed from the Prince of Happiness, Ashok Kumar, to the humble servant of the feet of the Guru. And when I grew up, I asked the Guru, "Why did you give me that name?" And he says, "Son, it's a good thing to be reminded about humility." By the way, humility is one of those qualities, attitudes. And then he gave the very best definition of humility that I have heard. And what is that? Humility, he said, is to take your work seriously, but not yourself seriously.
Very nice.
And that,
excellent.
In fact, that became such an enduring lesson of my life that I dedicated my latest book, Another Sort of Freedom, to the happy few who don't take themselves too seriously. And frankly, that's freedom. If you don't take yourself too seriously, that is a source of inner freedom. And if you and where it comes, where it's connected to leadership, is that if great leaders, I have seen this, and I'll give you one example. The best leaders are ones who have the ability to act without worrying about who gets the credit for that action. And it is really, as Gopal and I were talking, it is the most, the most original idea in the Bhagavad Gita is the idea of Nishkam Karma, that you act for the sake of the action without worrying what's in it for me, without worrying about the consequences. So to me, that is a very important quality. Now, it's not easy.
So with due respect, we would go through these qualities. I want to list them down. But for the opening remark, if I can request Mr. Gopalakrishnan to reflect, taking cue from what Mr. Das has said, that are leaders born or leaders are made, self-made or built. Now, he obviously gave me a very simple one-line, I would say an SOP or a theory, that how to practice humility. That's very easy for anyone here or for me, that you take your work seriously, don't take yourself seriously. So similarly, I want to come back to you, that do you feel leadership is born or built? I would also like you to sort of take reference from a brilliant piece of concept that I heard you speaking, which is truthiness and mathiness. Truthiness, Paul Romer, mathiness from a comedian. So could you please elucidate us, educate us on this aspect of leadership?
The short answer to your question is leaders are self-made.
Leaders are self-made.
Yeah, they're not born. I have had the privilege of working for a Ratan Tata and also working for an Ashok Ganguly or even seen Prakash Tandon. And they are completely different if you have to sit down and write about their leadership style. But I think I'm certain it was self-made. My definition of leader is rather practical and simple. A leader is the person who can reflect and act. Reflect because he creates spaces in his mind to think about what he has done. Act because the situation requires his intervention. That's it.
Excellent. I would like to, you said that leaders are made, self-made. But I think one of the brilliant practices, again a learning for me, is that what you practice from the HR perspective in Tata Group, where very succinctly, very nicely you said that you need to find out good people, retain the better one, and advance the best ones. So you mean to say that when they are learning, when you recruit somebody at the management trainee level or a middle management level, then he grows up to be at the top of in the corner office. So in the process, you're seeing that they're making themselves, creating a leader out of themselves. Is that what you saw when you are advancing best people?
It is what you test for. You take a bright person, or everybody seeks to take a bright person, but you move that person around. Because if you're sitting in the same place doing the same job for 20 years, you may become very good at that job, but that doesn't make you a leader. It may make you a leader in a particular situation regarding that job. And if they pass every test, it's like a cricketer. You'll play club cricket, then you'll play school cricket and universities, Ranji Trophy, before you become a test cricketer. You do exactly the same with people in business and enterprise. And when you do that, you got people who are not assured that they'll be successful. There are so many CEOs who get fired And one of the books I've written is on that. Why do CEOs work their way up and then get fired? And my simple conclusion, obviously I'm oversimplifying in the interest of brevity, is they lose sight of themselves. They become arrogant, they get hubris, they don't listen to people, and they get fired. But I will stop there because I must be brief and allow a discussion amongst ourselves.
I will come to you with a question, which is taking a cue from him. Well, I think one of the qualities that I would expect in a leader, besides the qualities that you have just listed down, is ability to be ahead of the curve. You know, it's like the cricket captain has there's a catch which is there at the short leg, and then you put a fielder there. That's following the game. But if you had put the fielder before the catch went there, that's being ahead of the curve. That's what I mean. I want to ask you, sir, both of you, that you had actually coached, mentored many leaders in your life. You have also been mentored by many leaders, the legends. Do you think that there are certain qualities or shortcomings which you would try to look into a person or find in a person which will be elimination criteria? I mean, those are the things, if you see in someone, he's not fit to be a leader, no matter how he tries, unless and until. You know, sometimes we say the talents would remain, skills can be imparted. So have you come across a set of qualities which would be some kind of an untouchable qualities? That person would never grow up to be a leader. And at the very early stage, do you really look for a few aspects, qualities, edges, which make you think that this gentleman or this lady has the promise to grow up to be the leader, if nurtured well, and the person is working on themselves?
Yeah. Well, first let me respond to what Gopal just said. And he's right. One of the risks of becoming a successful leader is arrogance and why leaders are fired. But that was precisely why I spoke before about the Guru's idea of humility, which was not to take yourself too seriously. Great leaders, hopefully they won't be fired, but one of the reasons why they're not fired is because they have that inner freedom, that sense of security, of not taking themselves too seriously, you know.
I understand.
So he's actually endorsed the point I was trying to make. Now, you've asked an interesting question, and I come from a company, Procter & Gamble, where it is only promotion from within. Meaning that if somebody leaves the company, you can't just advertise the job in the paper or try and fill the job from the outside through a headhunting firm. You have to promote from within. And of course, we had a world to choose from, so if we couldn't find, and it became ridiculous at times because we needed a company secretary, and my boss says, let's get him from Timbuktu. And I said, you know, the person has to know Indian laws, so it can become a difficult challenge. But the point I'm making is that this promotion from within obsession was such that the day you joined, you learned that you would only go up if you trained the person below you to take your job. And so I remember a situation when I was at the global headquarters and I wanted to talk to the brand manager of one of our products, of oil of Olay. And no, it was Pantene shampoo. And I asked my secretary to please call him, and she comes back to say, I'm sorry, but he's training his assistant right now, and he will not be available for the next 45 minutes. And I said, this is quite wonderful. First, I was a bit upset. Yeah, I'm a managing director, and this guy's a brand manager, and why doesn't he show up? But then I realized the culture of a company where training your next person to become a leader is your religion, is your mantra. And so it was as important as the next market share.
No, but, I'm sorry, are you responding to my question?
I'm responding to your, I'm sorry, I'm not a good responder to your questions. I tend to go around.
I will bring you back, sir,
Yeah.
with your permission.
What I'm trying to suggest is that because it was your duty to train people, it was also your duty for the people to know what you thought of how that person would be, and did the person have the potential? And yes, there was an example of a case where I had to tell the person, I'm sorry, but you're not going to make it. And it was unfortunate, but true.
Right. Sir, anything that can help us, or the leaders? Because I believe that we who are in general management jobs, I believe that we are possibly master of none. What we are master of is to manage people. And I feel a leader doesn't need to know everything. They need to just know who knows. So is it something, some litmus test or some very critical aspects that you look in a person or in a candidate who is like either make the cut or not make the cut?
Well, if I isolate one item, because I can give you 10 items that will...
No, please give all the 10.
No. It's good to be focused.
Okay.
And the one item I would say is the manager's job is to solve problems amidst uncertainty. If all the facts are available, you can do mathiness.
Yes. So would you please take 2 minutes and explain the audience and the audience on the television your concept of mathiness and truthiness?
Well, since you insist, I will do so. But I have not coined these two terms. But mathiness is regarded as the skill to convert everything into rational algorithms. So if you ask, is the Indian GDP growing at 8%? You say, show me the evidence. And then you can get caught up in all the numbers and prove it is 7.9 and not 8.1. The truthiness is walking around and trying to see, does it smell like it's 8% or does it smell like it's 5%? And most of our most important decisions in life use a combination of the two. If your daughter or son is not growing up well, quote unquote, up to a point you can get data, who are her friends, is she studying well? But after that your parental intuition comes in, truthiness, and you go out and check whether you need to do something or treat it as a passing phase. So that's mathiness and truthiness. They're just nice little expressions which sound mysterious but are very commonsensical. The one quality that I have found as a great discriminator is this person able to solve problems in the presence of, in abundance of ambiguity? The more ambiguous, does he get overwhelmed by ambiguity or is he able to see his way through? Parenting is the best form of management development, frankly.
Yeah.
No parent, father or mother, is trained to be a parent. I've never come across a course, maybe EEILM can start a program, but nobody will attend that program because you will not get a job after that. It's a thankful job which is immediately thankless. That's what a management career is all about. The thankfulness of the job comes much later. The thanklessness of the job is when you're being trained. And I find that people who get overwhelmed, you know, when I joined Tata's, Ratan Tata asked me to become a director of Tata Motors. Something happened and there was no CEO. And he said, will you assist me? I didn't know the backside from the front side of a truck, to be honest. I mean, I had been selling dalda and soap and stuff like that, you know. But I said, there's no way I'm going to ever know more about the foundry or the production line compared to this guy who spent 20 years there. He's 20 years younger than me. So I used to go every Saturday and Sunday to the factory to sit down, listen to him, understand maybe 40-50%. I have a background in engineering. And then take decisions or bring back things where I wanted to consult Ratan Tata. That is the skill that's required. When I was sent for the first time from being an area manager in the south to being a regional manager in the north, I had never visited Punjab. For me, it was a foreign country. I'm going back to the 60s, 70s. And everybody looked different to me. But I'm sure my bosses were wondering whether I'm a fellow who could operate only in the comfort of the south or could I learn to operate there. So that is the skill I would look for.
Right. So I would like to bounce off my hypothesis on it. I mean, there are many things that I observe in a person when I think that whether they are fit to be groomed into a leader or should be invested in or not. But two of the things are red alerts for me. Red alert. Two aspects are red alert for me, for any person. So one is very fundamental, time management. If I see anyone who's unable to manage their own time, I would not really invest in that person. And that is very apparent in anybody in their conduct. The second, what I look at in a person, that their reactions to mistakes or reactions to when you identify or when you point out their mistakes. So how? Because, you know, again, if you take it from Mr. Myra or what I believe that we are eternal learner and we learn more from our mistakes. So these two are red alert for me when in a person, when I see that person is very protective about the mistake and the person is failing to manage time. So your take on this?
Well, this is again coming back to the fundamentals we began with, a question of attitude. How does a person operate in a situation of adversity? You know, it's Gopal, it's ironic that we still have not learned how to recruit people. You know, we typically, the candidate comes, he's top of the class in IIM Calcutta, and the questions that we ask the person are about facts. Does he know this? Does he know this? Does he know this? Of course he knows those things. I mean, but business ultimately is a matter of common sense. And as he said, it's about uncertainty. And what one is looking for is that sense of a person's attitude. And in the interview, we'll never ask anything to learn about how the person solves the problem. And so I would say, since you will have students, MBA students here and in the audience, I mean in your television audience, this is a message to both companies on how to recruit and also to MBA students and also to the faculty of MBAs. Teach them. It's not easy, by the way, to teach attitude. Attitudes are formed very early, but there are enough studies to show. But more importantly, there are ways to uncover attitude. And I don't know about in Tatas or levers, but what I learned was that learn how to interview a candidate. And so So therefore, I would just say that ultimately leaders, good leaders have come to some equilibrium with regard to their purpose, the purpose of life. And I'm sorry I'm taking this discussion to a philosophical level, but frankly, all human beings want to live a life of purpose. And especially those who are very successful leaders begin to ask this question in their 40s, is this what life is all about? And good leadership is about creating an environment where people can find that sense of purpose.
Thank you, sir. I would just like to go. Again, with your permission, I'll come back to my topic. Mr. Gurcharan Das has emphasized on that importance of identifying a right candidate during recruitment, be it management trainee, be it somebody you're recruiting for as a CEO. But if the hypothesis that I said, if those two are really my elimination criteria, time management.
So one is time management. What is the second one?
The second one, how one reacts to mistakes.
Okay. Can I comment on that?
Yes, but I can't judge. Till date, I haven't been able to judge these two red alerts while interviewing. They surface as I start working with them. So if you agree whether these two are real red alerts or not, and do you have any guidance on whether during recruitment, he said recruitment is very important. Teaching, I agree. Teaching, you can teach these two. But while recruitment, you really cannot filter these two bad qualities out. So.
I disagree. That there are techniques now, psychologists have found, to uncover these specific attitudes of people, how they work, etc. And I really feel that both businesses, companies, as well as your business schools haven't got it.
I agree. The psychometric tests are there. But I was referring to more like if you're recruiting a senior manager or a future CEO. So if these two are red alerts for you, and is there a way that you can figure out?
Firstly, with due respect to your view, I don't consider those red lines.
I would like to be corrected.
And it's worthwhile for you to think as to why you have got that idea. It is not right or wrong. Many things in management are like that. It's neither right nor wrong. And when I see my sons and daughters-in-law growing up and raising their children, I have this idea of an ideal father or ideal mother. Always calm, always diagnosing the issue. But they're all different, even my own children. And that's true of managers as well. I can, without mentioning names, tell you people who have been hopeless at managing time who have done brilliantly well.
Sorry, come again?
Who have done brilliantly well.
Even not managing time well.
Even though they don't manage time well. Anil Ambani used to make a statement once that I have lost weight because an analyst asked me, if you can't manage your own weight, how will you manage Reliance Industries? Well, it's good that he lost weight. I have no problem with that. But neither did he manage Reliance Industries too well. So these are what in physics we call necessary conditions but not sufficient.
I agree. That's why elimination, I said.
No,
it's not selection.
I would not eliminate a person only for that reason. I got the impression that you asked the question, if these are two red lines, if I see this, they're out. I think that's not something I would agree with. It's not in my experience either. Those are signals. And I think it's very important to consider that development of leadership requires the developer of the leader or the assessor of the leader to also understand ambiguity. I told you about 3 people whom I've seen operating at different levels of closeness. Probably Prakash Tandon at a great distance, Ashok Ganguly much closer, and Ratan Tata very closely. They are completely different. And I'm not here to analyze them. At least two of them are dead and gone, and one of them is quite old. But to say that there's no perfection in this, there is effectiveness. If the person who's not managing his time is therefore ineffective, putting off all his people, not taking decisions, that's a red line for me. It's the outcome rather than the input. That's the point I want to make.
Right. Now, there's another concept that my own self-made concept. If I have to just classify or list the broad activities that a leader does, again, I want to bounce it off with you, whether it's in the right direction, the thought is in the right direction or not. I believe the CEOs or leaders, they virtually are doing three broad activities. One, they manage people. People in the sense that manage colleagues, employees, stakeholders. That's one of their most important jobs. And then they take decisions. Decisions with respect to everything. Day to day, complexity, strategy, vision, long-term vision, those are decisions that I make. And then they guide the organization. Guide the organization,
yeah.
right? They're supposed to show path, like I think John C. Max has said that, one of the authors, he said that leaders are those who knows the way, shows the way, goes the way. So therefore, somebody who's a leader is expected to solve the problem or guide the people. So do you think that broadly these are the three broad buckets? That's what the CEOs or the leaders focus on?
Well, since I don't seem to manage to answer your questions too well, let me take this head on. That, you know, I think that the mindset with which you are coming from is a mindset where the leader is the big decision maker, the guide, as you put it. And I have a different view of leadership. I come from a school where leadership is participative, that a good leader actually tries to stand back and elicit from the people. And it's not the command and control school of leadership.
Taking decision is not command and control. Before taking the decision, you consult everyone.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, the whole organization runs on your decision. You're the final decision maker. If it's right, it's the right decision. If you're wrong, it's your ownership that you've taken the decision.
Yes.
It's not commanding. I understand,
No,
Mr.
but
Gopal.
what I'm trying to say,
Because he often mentioned, and I agreed to that you're not supposed to, as a leader, you don't control. You empower people. Those are elementary lessons of leadership.
Yeah.
But final decision making is on to the leader.
But what I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, people don't say that he did it, the leader did it, or he decided, we did it. That is.
So I have a little difference in that. If it goes wrong, I said I did it. If it goes right, I say we did it. But finally, I took the decision.
Okay, you're a generous man.
No, I'm not. I'm a genuine man, not a generous man. I am driven by merit. So I give the credit, and as a leader, I understand that I have to take any decision gone wrong. I have to be responsible for it. But I cannot shy. I think he just mentioned that Mr. Gopalakrishnan just mentioned. Somebody I've seen in leadership roles, they don't take decision. That is the biggest shortcomings that I've seen in leaders. That they will keep postponing decision making because they're unable to take decisions.
Yeah. No, that point is a legitimate point. I was just trying to say that my idea of the leader is the one who stands back. That's the Chinese.
While taking a decision, no, sir.
No, who stands? No, we're not talking about that. The organization says we did it. And the whole job of the leader is to empower the organization.
That I agree.
To do
but then when chips are down, when blocks are down, the leader has to be in the front, not stand back. So your take on this?
No, I think You both said the same thing, but in different ways. So let me state what I'm saying. Ultimately, the responsibility is of the leader.
Right.
If your profits collapse,
Yes.
you'll be blamed.
Yeah.
If the profits are good, it is the leader's option, whether he's generous or whatever you want to call it, to say my team did it. You know, examples help rather than just talking. And I want to give one example which made a great impact on me. I was that time in Hindustan Lever, and the chairman, Sushim Datta, had just become chairman. And we got a message from the head of our Dumduma tea plantation in Assam that a ransom of 35 lakhs had been asked for, you know, by whom, and 2.5 rupees per kilo of every kilo of tea sold. There was no way Hindustan Lever was willing to do that. But the lives of our managers were at stake because 15 days or something had been given. And we, our chairman in the past, before Sushim, had made speeches that we are a company of people. So Sushim said, this is a very unusual situation, none of us is trained for it, and he went around the table. Two of my colleagues put up their hand and said, we will airlift them secretly. And Sushim said, okay, if you can do that, go ahead. They did it. We went to the ministry in Delhi, we used the clout, we got the general officer commanding, General Brar was that time GOC in C in Eastern Command, and Air Vice Marshal Sinha was the AOC. Overnight, without the Congress government at that time knowing what's happening, we got 35 families out. If it had failed, people would have said Sushim Datta botched it. But I have watched it happen. Took everybody's view, backed the two guys who said they'll do it all the way, and heaved a sigh of relief saying, thank God this has come right. That is leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely in agreement, sir. So from Mr. Shu, you want to say something, sir?
Well, I was just going to add on to that, the thought that if you are in a situation of adversity, and you've described a good one, we faced a similar one of adversity, which was when the government brought in an order called the DPCO, Drug Price Control Order. And they gave us a price for Vicks Vapor Rub, which was a price that we would actually lose money every time we sold a bottle of Vicks Vapor Rub. So we were in the doghouse. And our share price collapsed in the stock market, and we were going to go into a loss, and we actually might have had to totally collapse. I don't think she likes me. Anyway, what happened afterwards was, I was at that time the head of the company, actually just been appointed. So I was 38, 39 years old. And so I called our group of people, the top management leadership team, and you were describing such a meeting. And we went around, they were depressed, faces were depressed, people who said we are going to have to look for jobs. And one person in our team made a joke. He said, you know, what if we had been an Ayurvedic company? There's no price control on Ayurvedic products. And then our R&D guy said, he was looking at the formula of Vicks Vapor Rub, and he says, you know, was a wise person. He knew not only the Western system of medicine, he was a doctor, but he also knew the Ayurvedic system. And he says, a lot of the ingredients are menthol, camphor, eucalyptus, are natural ingredients. So we passed, and the other fellow says, imagine a headline appearing in the Times of India that a 100-year-old American product becomes a 2,000-year-old Indian medicine. So people were laughing, but the R&D guy decided, he said, look, I'm going to the Bombay University library, and I'm going to look in the Ayurvedic formulary. And he took a bottle of Vicks with the ingredients. And he said, let's just in case it's something. And so he comes back. From there, we meet in the evening, and he says every single ingredient is in the Ayurvedic formulary. We couldn't believe it. So the question now was how to go about it. And so I talked to our government relations guy in Delhi, and I said, why don't you sound out? You have good contacts, people who are, you can talk to honestly. And that fellow says, well, the advice that the government relations officer told us was, don't try and change the formula of Vicks Vapor Rub. Register a new product with the same formula as Vicks Vapor Rub, and you don't have to give a name. You can give the name later. And so we did this. When our application arrived on the desk of the officer in the Food and Drug Administration, he knew what was going on. He practically fell off his chair, but he couldn't do anything. So he had to observe the law, and so within a month we got our registration, and we allowed the present stock to finish, and we printed new labels, same product. We in fact had a problem with our union. This is Datta Samant's time in Bombay. I don't know if those of you who remember the dreaded Datta Samant. And so we were having problems. We said, no, we'll put a new plant in Hyderabad, and we'll have only women, because the guys in our plant were all men, and they were giving us a hard time. Anyway, long and short of it is that Vicks became Ayurvedic, and the benefit of that, the gravy, was that Ayurveda, see, we were limited as a drug product to 60,000 pharmacies in India, but as an Ayurvedic, suddenly we were competing with Hindustan Lever. We went to 3 million outlets within 12 months.
Not only that, they even inspired Baba Ramdev to come into existence.
Very nice, excellent.
So my point here is that you create an environment of open discussion where people don't feel that they're fools.
So the industry that I come from, I deal with people who are super intelligent, the journalists. So I have no luxury of considering anybody as a fool around me. But I understand what you're saying. I just want to move into the topic of leadership in the Indian context. But before that, I have a generic question to both of you, gentlemen, that, in corporate leadership, the dynasty or the family passing on to the baton to the next generation, and the leadership thus getting passed on. What is your take on that? I have heard you saying, Mr. Gopalakrishnan, in the context of Toys R Us and Lego, and you have also mentioned that public at large will be a little sympathetic when the same family, next generation, takes up the baton. So what's your general take on it? Do you think that it is meritocracy is being compromised at times? Even a listed company, when you pass on the leadership to the next generation?
Yes. In other words, I think we as a country, as a country with entrepreneurs and businesses, will not mature until we learn succession. And we learn that you don't have to fill your company with nephews, that you keep your family out of it. And there is a time, it's very unusual when the second generation or the third generation is very even more unusual, where you have real leaders at that stage. But frankly, I know too many cases of Indian companies with very strong, the entrepreneurs built very strong companies which did not survive because they thought that only their children could succeed.
So I just asked a question, you have agreed with me. I'm glad. But I didn't have any notion on this because I'm too inexperienced for that. I just wanted to take your opinion and views on it. Sir, yours?
Well, if I may quote Deng Xiaoping, I don't care if the cat is black or white so long as it catches mice. So I don't care if it's your entrepreneur's son or nephew or a professional manager so long as he delivers. I've sometimes felt that what Gurcharan just said, that you tend to automatically give it to your son without testing. If you see Dhirubhai Ambani do well by putting Mukesh, it does look he's done well. But because he's a son, you can't deny it to him. But had he chosen the wrong son, we don't know what would have happened. I can give you the example of Harsh Mariwala, who consciously decided that the best person should get that job, and he has put Saugata Gupta there, and not his own son, against a lot of turmoil, as he has himself mentioned, in his family. So I believe this is an infructuous debate. The right debate to have is that the era of the PEM is coming, Professional Entrepreneurial Manager. Professionals have to be entrepreneurial, entrepreneurs have to be professional. And if I look at Chandrasekhar today running Tata's, he's a good example of a professional manager. He doesn't have the surname, but he's highly entrepreneurial. He has taken Tata into what Jamshedji Tata did in 1900, going into steel and hydropower, into electronics, into iPhone. Most of your iPhones here are probably made in a Tata factory, or some of you will have such an iPhone. And you can have, therefore, the future manager, since we are talking to young students also here, the future manager will be a PEM. And whether he's born to the founder or not will not make a difference. If he's not a P and an E, then he won't be the leader that you require.
Another learning for me. Thank you very much, sir. I have been signaled that we are running out of time, so I would skip the India bit of it because the other two topics are far more relevant and I'm far more confused about them, and they're very close to our practical day-to-day working. One is women in leadership. Have we done enough? I mean, even if you still say that senior management positions in the top companies, listed companies in India, women's participation is about 18%. I don't see that it's increasing at a rate it should have. Is there a way that we could course correct on that? Because even McKinsey has said that by utilizing women workforce itself and in the leadership position as well, India's GDP can get a fillip by about $600 to $700 billion, which is almost about 30% of our GDP, 20% of our GDP. So if that be the case, that is there something that we need to do, we are missing out in that context?
Well, the tragedy is even bigger because you're talking about leadership and corporate leadership, but women's participation in the labor.
37% compared to East Asia, 66%. Even that's very small.
I mean, that is a shocking statistic, and every economist has been trying to figure out, tearing his hair and her hair, as to why. Why is this, now girls are getting as good an education as boys. And why are women not joining the workforce and so on? So I'm putting your question in a national context where this is a very serious issue. And it's absolutely, your assumptions are absolutely right, what you said, that yes, that it could have a very positive effect on not only the GDP, but the overall culture of managing in
So I in fact say I go one step further. I often say I only have, this is truthiness, not mathiness. I don't have a figure for it, but I often feel, very strongly I feel that women-led development is the panacea for the world. So that's my own feeling. Again, I said that truthiness, there's no math in it. So your take on, sir, how do we solve this problem where we bring in or utilize, bring in, treat women on merit and have more women in the workforce, not only in the corner offices, but in general across the economy?
You know, I have an answer to one part of it. I don't have an answer to the second part. The part that I have an answer to is, yes, women must be there. But this bias against the female goes back a very long time, and we don't want to go into that history here. We want to accelerate it. I'm not sure how to accelerate it, other than discussing the subject like we are doing today, making people aware, conscious. You know, I go back to my old days in Calcutta. Gache kathal, gofe fool. You know, you are very interested to, you've seen the kathal now. Nobody's disputing it's the kathal. But gofe tel lagi dijiye. You're not going to get it. So can we be a bit patient? Do what we can to accelerate it. But that it is very important is not in dispute. I am the happy father of 2 daughters, happy grandfather of 3 granddaughters, and I fully back women.
Thank you.
My point here is I asked the same question you asked us. I asked this to a lady who was a position of power. You probably all know of her. And her answer was, I'll have reservations. I said, you mean every 3rd CEO or every 2nd CEO should be a woman? A reservation? And she said, yes. And I was horrified. I must tell you. I think that would be the worst possible way to solve the problem. So let's not get seduced. Let's not even go in that direction.
Right. Okay, that brings me back to the last topic. Again, a topic which is very close to my heart and something that I am as a father also grappling with, not only as a head of an organization, which is dealing with the Gen Z, the new generation. You have seen the transition India has gone through, the Indian managers, even after economic liberalization where LPG came into being, liberalization, privatization, globalization. I think that you have seen the change in attitude in leadership from that time. And then now, with the new workforce coming in, while the corner offices and the leadership positions are mostly with the Gen Y, which is just one generation before that. Have you noticed that new phenomenon called Gen Z and how they are reacting, how they are looking at life in general and how they will look at their profession and career in particular? So how is that phenomenon spanning out in corporate India
So,
now?
you know, I don't understand all these alphabets, Z.
Okay, I'll just
Younger
tell
people and older people. Let's put it that way. That's easier for me.
you. So where do I stand then?
I am Gen A. So you can decide where you want to be.
So then it is not older, younger. You are again dividing it into.
So let me answer your question. I've thought about this deeply. And I've come to the conclusion there's no problem with Gen Z. The problem is with Gen Y and B and A and all those other guys. We have to change our attitudes. When I was young, my father would tell me I should do A, B, C, D. But my grandfather would tell me, I wish your father would listen to me. And the same thing is happening with my son. And now I'm seeing my son and my grandson. I therefore wrote a book on this called What the CEO Really Wants from You. And while we train our youngsters to aim high, to think strategically, to do all the mumbo jumbo, that management
The
books.
4 A's of yours.
The 4 A's. Make sure that you're a good subordinate before you think of becoming the big boss. And what are the 4 ways to be a good subordinate? I'm not elaborating because that's going to take time. But it's very, very important to emphasize the 4 A's and let people. I have had a situation, I can tell you a real life case. I was young, 31, 32. I had a young trainee who's a fairly well-known guy, but I'm not mentioning his name, who was 22, 23. He became my area manager. He had to catch a flight to Nagpur, 6 o'clock flight. And at 10:30 I see him in the office. So I say, hey, what are you doing here? He said, I missed my flight. He said it in a very, he wasn't apologetic or fretful or anything. Oh, well, I overslept. I said, what do you mean you overslept? In those days, a ticket to Nagpur would cost 250 rupees or 300 rupees by air. And he said, I didn't set an alarm because I get up on my own. I didn't get the phone to ring me up because, you could get a phone alarm. I just thought I'll get up, but I didn't get up. So I lost the flight. So I said, I'm afraid you'll have to bear the cost of that flight. He said, that's okay, no problem. I said, this is such a level of casualness. A month later, I had a chat with him. I said, are you sure you want to be a sales manager selling dalda and sunlight soap? He said, actually, you're right. This is not the career I'm looking for. In 2-3 months, he went. He's having a very good career, very successful in other respects. So I think it's very important to be able to demand being a good subordinate, and that's it. Don't tell the Gen Z to be like you, because you are not like your father, and your father wasn't like his father. Thank God. Otherwise, you'll still be sitting in the village swatting flies. That's my answer.
And, frankly, business is common sense. Buy low, sell high. And the rules of business don't change from generation to generation. Somebody asked me the same question that you just asked and was asking me, well, how will the business rules change, or how would you change your style of managing with Gen Z? And I said, look, those rules, you have to satisfy your customer, you have to be fair to your suppliers, you have to respect your employees. Those rules are not going to change, whichever generation. But I think what his story, Gopal's story, has pointed to is a much deeper question with which we actually began. And that story really is how important
His attitude.
How important, it's partly the duty of the organization to be able to find people like this Nagpur flight misser and be able to tell the person, maybe this is not the job for you. Because half the time while I was working, I was feeling that maybe this is not the job for me. And eventually, I quit and became, at 50, I quit and became a writer. And so what I'm trying to say is, it comes back to the fact that we all have to make a living, but we also want to make a life. And that making a life means that you have to find some purpose, that your work, the job of the leader who's guiding the organization, has to be able to create that sense of purpose. And there will be people like me who have a basic ambiguity about the commercial world and who finally chose to become a writer. But I had solved the problem. I had become, for 25 years, I was a weekend writer. I was wearing 2 hats through my life, Monday to Friday hat, and then I would change to Saturday, Sunday hat. So my point, I think, here is that for every human being, we want to make a life.
Sir, I think we have to wind up, but I must tell you that both you gentlemen, you reminded me the first lesson of leadership we were taught in business school, which is followership. And where you ended, sir, in fact, that has answered a question or a riddle that most of the modern day leaders would be facing soon, is how to handle the Gen Z. And both of you very nicely put, and especially you, sir, you're saying that we were motivated to make a living. I think the next generation, we got to motivate them to make a life. So we have an answer in your heart. And thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Thank you very much, audience. You've been a fantastic audience. It's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Das. It was a great conversation. As always, TV9's award-winning Duologue show with Barun Das.